Hey guys, it's Scott with Scotty B Cards, and in this video I want to talk all about Mookie Betts and why I think he is a good investment. It's no secret, Mookie Betts is my PC. I would say out of my entire total dollar value, maybe 35 to 40% is in Mookie Betts. And then I have about 30% in Trout, and then everybody else kind of makes up the rest. But Mookie is a guy who I have been targeting for years, and I just think in the long run, he's going to be a good buy. And I'm going to discuss why in this video and why you could consider buying Mookie Betts. Complete warning before we start, I am 100% biased, but overall, I try to not be biased in this video. I want to show the good and the bad stats and let you decide if you think he's a good or bad buy. You're gonna see a lot of numbers on this video because analytically he is a legend in a lot of ways. Let's just look at first of all his accomplishments. He has an MVP, he's won 2 World Series, he's a Silver Slugger, 5-time Gold Glover, All-Star, Minor League Player of the Year, and then overall Defensive Player for Wilson, which isn't as big of a deal, but he does have a batting title as well. And if you look at his stat lines, there's some really good things and there's some not so good things. The first thing is you'll see in the even years, he's much better than the odd years. 2016 MVP 2, 2018 MVP 1, 2020 MVP 2, and so forth. He just constantly is better in the even years, which is good for 2022. But that actually isn't as true as you would think. If we go look at his WAR, he's been really consistent his entire career. This 3.6 actually is going to be the #1 player in all of baseball between both leagues. It's just because it was a 60-game season, and this last year it was by far his worst season, and that's because he had a bone spurt in his hip and couldn't play as much or as well. But even if you actually look at his 2021 season, he's about a 5.5 WAR player over 162 games, which again is most people's career year in baseball. An actual average player in baseball is about a 2 WAR player, so he was still much better all-star level. But overall, it wasn't the same guy as before. And I just want to call that out, but if you actually look, he has tons of accomplishments. His OPS plus isn't as high as you would expect, but that's because he's good offensively, defensively, on the base pass. Everything that make up a good ball player is him. He might not be elite offensively, but defensively, he is one of the best, if not the best right fielder of all time. I know there's Roberto Clemente and a bunch of other great ones, and we'll talk about that, but defensively, he's just elite, and then offensively, he's still elite. He's just not Juan Soto or Mike Trout, and that's okay. He doesn't need to be valuable. If we go look right here, this is the Hall of Fame statistics. You'll see his peak, the 7-year WAR total is 47.7. The average right fielder is 42. Mookie Betts has been in the league for 8 years. So realistically, this peak WAR, and this is including these 2 seasons here, this peak WAR is probably around 55 to 60. That's really good. If you see right here, out of the average right fielder for the Hall of Fame, they average 5.1 WAR per 162 games played. Mookie Betts is 8.3 WAR for 162 games played. He's actually already at 50 career WAR. The average Hall of Famer is around 65, I would say, at age 28. That's really impressive as well. So realistically, he'll be around an 80 to 90 WAR player by the end of his career. And that's what I want to call out, is he's one of the few players you can relatively be confident in them making the Hall of Fame. Even if he falls off and averages only 2 WAR a year for the next 5 years, he's at 60 WAR, and he's essentially there with his other accomplishments. So that's what I want to point out, is he's really safe, and that's why I like him. But in 2018, when he won his first MVP, he really broke out offensively. You can see his numbers really spiked. They did take a step back this year, and we'll discuss those. But overall, he turned into a different player. 186 OPS plus, 134, 147, 128. But this OPS plus number will probably be around 135 to 140 for the next 4 to 5 years of his peak. So let's talk about his defensive play. Here he is against all right fielders since 2016. This is when outs above average was measured. He is head and shoulders better than every other right fielder in baseball. There's not many right fielders who are good on outs above average. They're good defensively in the first place, but Mookie Betts is 16 wins above the #2 player, and there's not many who are really even in this bold red category. If we look at 2016 for overall players, shortstops and center fielders, they get a boost because of their position for outs above average, because it's a more valuable position than right field. But you can see there's shortstop, 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 shortstop. You have Nolan Arenado at number 5, which makes sense as the only third baseman on this top 15 list. And then center fielders all the way down to another shortstop, center fielder, and then Mookie Betts. So Mookie Betts, again, he's the best non-shortstop or center fielder not named Nolan Arenado defensively in the league. And there's a lot of stats that prove this, not just outs above average, but you have defensive WAR and other metrics. Right here, here's the total defensive WAR for all of the right fielders of all time. He's at 11.6 12.7 D WAR. And if you can see, Roberto Clemente and Jesse Barfield are 12.2. Mookie Betts will most likely pass both of them this year as the #1 right fielder for defensive WAR all time. So it's just one of those things where it might not make sense offensively to watch him when he's hitting singles or he's pulling home runs barely and he's hitting about 280 to 295. He's not Juan Soto, who has otherworldly on-base numbers and just crazy power. But Juan Soto is not Mookie Betts when it comes to defense. And both games are viewed as equals when it comes to value created for the team. And that's where he provides so much, is the overall value. Let's talk about 2021 and what happened. Before 2021, he was the #2 to #3 ranked player in every single poll you ever saw. And Mike Trout was #1. Mike Trout this year was hurt and didn't play. Mookie Betts was hurt and did play, still put up 4.2 WAR, but he dropped from #2 all the way to number 15 to 20 on most people's lists. That's not really fair, in my opinion, because realistically he could have sat out. He didn't play 40 games due to injury. He played 122, but you can see at about 5.6 WAR over the full 162 if he would have played with an injury, which took away all of his power. All of his power, all of his speed were gone. And defensively, you can see he was actually a negative value in right field. Because of that bone spur in his hip, he could not move as well as normal. And this was also, for his counting stats, the first year in his career with a designated hitter. He's a leadoff hitter. In the American League, it's not a huge deal. And in 2020, they actually had a DH for the National League teams. And so the pitchers weren't hitting. They weren't killing rallies for the #1 leadoff position. And that's what hurt his overall value there. He actually had really bad splits last year with runners in scoring position. But that's not historically what he's like. But that might have been because he was pressing too hard since those situations were few and far between. So I think this year he'll be benefited from the DH coming into the National League and giving him more RBI opportunities, more time to actually make a bigger impact than just leading off and being a high on base guy. So StatCast is great for actually looking at players' stats. So here's Mookie Betts in 2021. There's a lot of red here, which is great. Red is good, blue is bad. He's never been great at barreling up the baseball, but he's also been great at not striking out. So what he lacks in barrel percentage, he makes up in putting the ball in play, which is important because when you put the ball in play, it helps your overall numbers because things happen. Versus when you strike out, either you're hitting the ball hard or you're striking out, for a lot of players at least. But you'll see this number. This is outs above average, which is the defensive metric. He was in the 30th percentile, below average, which is not good. If we go look at 2020, you'll see he's 92nd percentile. Everything's red because his hip was better. He wasn't injured and he was able to actually slug as well as he normally would. And the barrel percentage still didn't change, but overall, the rest of his game did change. If we look at 2019, same situation, really high percentile ranking, still outs above average or high. 2018, the best year of his career, same situation. Even if you go to 2017, where he wasn't quite the same guy yet, he was still really good defensively, and these numbers were better than his 2021 season. And that's why I don't think he's washed up. He's only 29, heading into the age 29 season, and as long as his bone spur is healed, then he's going to be great this year. And that's what I want to point out. And we go look at his actual numbers down here, you'll see he's led the league in a lot of red. Since he's been with the Dodgers, he hasn't done as well, which is a little worrisome for me. But overall, he still was the MVP2 last year because of his overall value. Well, 2 years ago, 2020, he just lost to Freddie Freeman, and he led both leagues in WAR. So where he lacks some of the really sexy rate stats, he still was making it up in overall value. And that's why I think Mookie's going to be just fine as long as this injury isn't persisting. If it's persisting, then he's in trouble. The bone spurs, they don't go well without surgery, and he didn't have surgery. But they could add other methods that me and you don't have because he's worth $300 million that took care of that situation. I don't think he would just move on without it. His projections are all good. BABIP means batting average on balls in play. So on average, league average about 300. Good players are generally above 300 because they're able to beat the shift and things like that. He had a BABIP last year of 276, which is the second worst in his entire career. Usually he's a 308 BABIP guy. He's projected to be a 297 BABIP, which just means he's going to be a lot better offensively. Other projections, he's supposed to be worth around 15 WAR over the next 3 years, which is still some of the best in all of baseball. Here's the projections for all the players next year. He is the 3rd National League, 7th overall when it comes to WAR at 5.8, just behind Aaron Judge, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Jose Ramirez, Mike Trout, Juan Soto, and Tatis. Just ahead of Acuna, Bregman, Turner, Correa, Franco. So really good player still, and he's projected to be a bounce back candidate. Sky's the limit. If you look at this list, you'll see a lot of really old players from the 60s and back to the 1800s, and then you'll see Mookie Betts right here. So the only player since 1967 to even have a WAR this high because he was at 10.7 were Joe Morgan, 1975, Cal Ripken, 1991, Barry Bonds in 2001 and 2002, and Mookie Betts in 2018. So it just shows to be on this list is really, really hard, and Mookie was able to do it and have probably the 5th best year of a player since 1967. Pretty impressive when it comes to WAR. I know WAR is not everything. I'm using it really heavily here. That's just to provide a context for overall value in a short time. Popular culture is one of the few players in baseball. Tatis is another one. You have Soto, who I think is going to be fine. Mike Trout has not done a great job with popular culture to be more relevant. He was in GQ. He's actually in the Call of Duty commercials. He was last year. He's a professional bowler who bowls perfect games. All these things help his value as well, as he's discussed, not just based off of his on-field play. Team success. This is his projected lineup. They're talking about, I'm recording this on Sunday night, about Freddie Freeman and even Nelson Cruz potentially being on this lineup. And if they do, it's going to be amazing. But you can see his team's going to be good. His teams have been good. He has 2 World Series. He'll be in the playoffs every year. And 2022, they're the #1 team in baseball, projected before the season starts. And their lineup's going to get even better, which is really, really hard to comprehend. Let's talk about cards now, real quick, and why not just all of the analytics show he's a good buy, but his cards as well. He has low pop. He's from 2014, where there weren't many cards produced and the print runs were really low. That's good for his cards. He's in hardly any sets. He was released later in the year and only has a handful versus players who have dozens or even like 30 of them. He has prospect cards and his rookie cards are from the same year, which creates a really unique buying opportunity because his Bowman Chrome autograph isn't before his Topps Update rookie card. Like, yeah, it was in the year, but they're the same year, which helps the value, in my opinion, of his Topps Update cards because they're able to hold more value. There's no autographs. He's signed to Fanatics, so this might change moving forward, but he's a Fanatics exclusive. He does not have a trading card deal. He has autographs in 2014, and then no autographs aside from stickers that were held over by Topps and Panini, and a few tiny number of sets in 2015 and maybe 2016. You cannot find Mookie Betts autographs. They're not like Mike Trout. Mike Trout signs every year in every product, and the whole market's diluted. Mookie's autographs are few and far between for 2 reasons. He doesn't sign, and also because he was a late product in the year. He doesn't have many sets. His parallels, even like the sets that did exist, there's not many parallels in those sets like now where a player has 40 in Top Series 1. He maybe had 12, and that helps the value of those cards as well. His concerns, his injury, if that doesn't get fixed, I'm concerned about it. His age and regression over the next 5 years is going to happen, and who knows how he will age. He may age gracefully or he may fall off. I don't think he's going to fall off, even if he falls off from his average of 8.6 WAR for 162 games down to 5 WAR for 162 games. He's already a Hall of Famer in my eyes, and I think he's going to be just fine. Those concerns are real concerns though, and I can see why they would hold up people thinking about investing in Betts, but overall I think the pros outweigh the cons. His cards are down significantly from last year because he's not viewed as a top 5 player again, even though I think that's silly. I think he will be a top 10 MVP candidate this year and will be a top 10 finish. That's just my opinion, but again, I'm extremely biased on Mookie Betts, but that's my thoughts. I wanted to give a video completely to him and discuss why he could be a good buying opportunity. As long as he stays healthy, I think we're all going to make money on Mookie Betts this year. But don't take this as financial advice, because it's not, because I cannot control variables in this situation that make it sound financial advice. Other than that, let me know in the comments below if you like Mookie Betts, don't like Mookie Betts, why or why not. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.